I've been given a bit of time to talk about a coordinated international lunar resource evaluation campaign and why this is important, not only for human exploration, but also for many, many other things. And I want to draw your attention to this paraphrase quote from Kraft Ericke that is at the bottom here. If God wanted humans to become a spacefaring species, he would have given them a moon. And we have a moon, and we are now moving towards becoming a multiplanetary species, hopefully. And it's unfortunate that this is at the same time as the Moon to Mars Objectives Town Hall. So I am not trying to attend two virtual meetings simultaneously. So you have my full attention, just so you know. So motivation is US space policy. This particular space policy is unique because it is the first one to have transcended an administration change. And specifically stated in this space policy is goal number 6, extend human economic activity into deep space by establishing a permanent human presence on the moon. And you can see that in doing so, space resource utilization is called out explicitly. If you look at principle number 4, it states that the United States will pursue the extraction and utilization of space resources in compliance with applicable law, very important. And again, it recognizes that those resources are critical for sustainable exploration. Now, at the spring meeting, the definition of sustainable was given by a NASA official that wasn't sustainable. And we can quibble over the terms, but if we use sustainable to mean enduring and lasting, then I think that means human permanence on the moon. And how do we achieve that? So let's look at NASA messaging from the NASA's plan for sustained. There's the S word again, lunar exploration and development. It's a sustained long-term presence on the lunar surface, because over the coming decades and generations, our presence will grow to use and develop extensive resources of the moon. So we're starting to see in the NASA messaging that we have sustainability linked with lunar resources. So if we look at this ESDMD document, we need to know the reserve potential of lunar resources, because as stated there, we're going to develop exploration technologies that can enable us a sustainable space economy with supporting utilities and commodities. So living off the land and knowing what's there becomes vitally important. And another important thing is the Artemis Accords. If a coordinated lunar resource evaluation campaign is international, it is compliant with the Outer Space Treaty. But here's the current situation, is that resources are being used by NASA as if it means a reserve. And you can see here a mineral reserve is the economically mineable part of measured and or indicated mineral resources. And you can see that in the diagram there. And in terms of the moon, we're basically dealing with 3 broad categories of resources: regolith, volatile bearing pyroplastic deposits, and polar volatiles. And again, we have to be careful how we use the term resource and when we actually mean reserve, because ground truth data and markets have not been developed, but are needed to tell if resources are reserved. So we got 2 roadblocks there leading into it. So this led to something that was actually debuted at the LSIC fall meeting last year about a coordinated international lunar resource evaluation campaign. We've since spoken about this at the Lunar Luxembourg Space Resources Week. We also spoke about it at the International Astronautical Congress in September. And we've had 2 lunar surface science workshops in 2022, one on the 11th of July and the other one about 3 weeks ago on the 14th of October. And you can see we've got a vast array of characters involved with this that are not just from the US, but also from Europe. And this is something that is is starting to gain attention. So I want to give you a few findings from 17 and LSSW 17 and 18 to sort of mull over. This one highlighted the need for understanding if lunar resources are reserves and the types of data that are needed to do that. Basically, it's not what's in the left-hand column, but what's in the right-hand column. We need mobile surface assets to understand a lot of these different data sets and the required fidelity of them. If we look at the 10 most promising sites for polar volatiles in the PSRs as compiled by Holly Brown et al. 2022, this is over 6,000 kilometers. So we had an implementation strategy that came out of 17, coordinating data gathering efforts from current and funded missions that are focused on lunar resources, defining data types and fidelity needed to derive useful products for future missions, developing lunar resource standards and evaluation metrics, inclusion of partners, defining a data policy or policies, leveraging private industry where possible, and developing a list of high priority targets using existing orbital data sets to focus surface exploration. And finally, developing mission concepts that could be conducted from orbit and relatively quickly in terms of neutron spectrometry, radar, IR reflectance, a better resolution than the current data sets to better inform precious mobile surface assets. So if we look at the beginning of the coordination, then these are missions that are currently manifested or actually at the moon. Coordinating data gathering efforts could be important because we'd have to agree on data fidelity, define a common data policy, develop standards so the data sets from various missions can be directly compared and overlain, i.e. the coordinate system as seen there. And we need to have the seamless integration, and this will develop a number of those things in the implementation plan. Better spatial resolution of neutron data. There are concepts out there for getting data down to 5 kilometers per pixel or 25 square kilometers from the current 40 by 40 kilometers per pixel that is the current data. And then once we have surface location specified, we need to then develop who's going to go where through a coordinated and cooperative campaign to the surface. And again, this would address number 4 and number 6 from the implementation plan. And it also, that little Venn diagram highlights that the data we get back from a surface campaign will actually inform multiple stakeholders. If we look at LSSW 18, we need to get to lunar reserves, so we need to combine orbital and surface ground truth data, because this is the only way we're going to get extent and grade of the deposit. This is important for to also understand the spatial resolution and through the extent. Data products are going to be highly processed, so we need to have a way of quantitatively assessing uncertainty on the interpretive products. And again, resource discoveries can only be claimed once ground truth surface data have been obtained. And the second one is this coordinated international resource evaluation campaign is compliant with the Outer Space Treaty, enables cooperation at various levels of involvement, increases efficiency and reduces cost to any one nation. And it should be coordinated by a neutral broker. And this may be one of the most contentious findings. Next steps for the coordinated campaign: identifying founding partners and convene an initial preparatory meeting for the campaign, identify a neutral entity to be the coordinator, and develop standards and produce much needed data. And then the Lunar Ore Reserve Standards developed by Carlos Espejel from iSpace out in Luxembourg. Again, these standards become important as we start to embark on this campaign. And this is something that has been under development for about 4 years now, and has a number of important principles that would be important to establish right at the beginning. So this gives us a way to start the ball rolling. So last slide is that the moon is an enabling asset. We can use that to learn how to go further afield. but we can also use that to learn how to make human exploration sustainable. And one of the ways to do that is to give a return on investment to society back here on Earth through these investments that the taxpayer is currently making and certain private companies are making, because we see the initial one of being job growth. And there are many future ones that we can get into. So that is my presentation, and I look forward to the discussion.